in the squadron. They called him Bullets, but we call him Greg Kelly. Greg Kelly is on the air
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Agencies, thoroughly corrupt, anti-Trump intel agencies. This is bigger than any election. This is bigger than, mail-in ballots or no mail-in ballots or whatever the hell it is. This is a machine, the intelligence community, a great big kind of organism that serves itself, can't be trusted. They're either getting things wrong by mistake or wrong on purpose. Wrong on mistake or wrong on purpose, I don't care. They're almost always wrong. It's fascinating. President Trump called out some of their failures during the 2016 campaign, and that may have been the beginning of the end for that relationship between President Trump and the intelligence, because, they don't want to be called out. Oh, my gosh, no weapons of mass destruction? How can you say that out loud? I mean, yes, everybody knows it, but why? You can't say that out loud. We're the intelligence community. We're the Central Intelligence Agency. We're the National Oceanic Intelligence Imaging Service. You can't say that about us out loud. So there was a hell of a lot of resentment toward Trump. And when you look through this stuff, a couple of things. Number one, you have to understand that Russia and other countries have been messing with our elections, quite frankly, since the beginning of our country. George Washington, John Adams were talking about interference with our elections from various countries. The French, the British. I know that all the way back in like the 1780s, they were worried about the French. The French wanted something about merchant ships, and they weren't getting enough business, whatever the hell it was. And France started really pushing certain candidates with, under-the-table payments. Fast forward to Nazi Germany. They had all kinds of people in America doing the bidding of the Nazis. It wasn't apparent. It wasn't obvious. But, for instance, the Nazis were trying to harm the candidacy, the re-election campaign of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. They were paying all kinds of money to prop up certain people, certain very prominent critics of FDR. It didn't work. FDR was reelected. But does that mean that the person who was running against FDR was a pawn of the Russians? No, actually it doesn't. Hey, by the way, who was that in 1940? I don't think it was Dewey. Was it Stimson? His vice president? These things have happened throughout history. And Ronald Reagan, by the way, the Soviets were working against Ronald Reagan in 1984. Did that mean that, Walter Mondale was the beneficiary of that? Should we hold it against Walter Mondale? No. He wasn't colluding. He didn't ask for it. Just like we should not have held it against President Trump in 2016, that there was some mischief going on. And the mischief was very, very kind of low. It was minimal. It was juvenile in a way. $100,000 worth of Facebook ads and a couple of other things. It wasn't that big a deal, but we made it into the biggest deal in the world. This is the crime. This is the sin of the Central Intelligence Agency, the deep state, the media, all of it. They acted like what happened in 2016 was the worst thing that had ever happened, that we had never seen anything like it before, and they thought they could sabotage the presidency of Donald Trump by hyping this thing like crazy, pretending it was the worst and the first, when it wasn't really the worst, and it certainly wasn't the first. For decades, I got scholars talking about this stuff in the 80s, in the 70s, in the 60s, in the 1780s. We've had foreign adversaries doing stuff in this country that we don't really want them to do, but since we're a free and open country, they would do it. Now, you could say in 2016, it's a lot easier because you don't actually, in 1984, how could they stop Ronald Reagan? How did they try? Planting certain articles in the newspaper, stuff like that. In 1976, they really didn't like a guy named Scoop Jackson, Henry Scoop Jackson. I don't know what the hell they had with him, what the problem was. So they spread a nasty rumor that he was gay, right? All over the place. And that hurt his chances to get the nomination. I don't know what he denied it, by the way, but they've been doing stuff like this for a long time. Yet they acted like the house was on fire in 2016 when President Trump showed up, and they ignored everything that China was doing for the Democrats. China tried to get Democrats reelected in 1996. People remember this? A lot of people don't, but it was a significant story at the time. They found straw donors to get money from China to the Clinton campaign, and people went to jail. Chinese communists preferred Bill Clinton over who the hell was running in 1996. Anybody remember? Bob Dole, and Jack Kemp. This stuff happens. It's kind of standard, but they pretended that it was the worst thing ever, and that really is the crime. To tarnish, to harm, to cut off at the knees the presidency of Donald Trump, and then in 2020, to ignore all of the stuff that China was doing to help Joe Biden. And they were doing a lot. They clearly had a preference for Joe Biden. And I'm looking at these documents behind the scenes. They didn't want to put that in writing. They did not want to say what they knew in writing because they thought that President Trump would see this information in the presidential daily briefing and make a big deal out of it, as is his right. I mean, this stuff is made ultimately for the president, these intelligence products. And if he wants to say something about it, he can. They leaked like crazy about the Russians. Why can't they say the truth about the Chinese? So it's really kind of a disappointment. Hey, Carlos, do me a favor. Boot up this interview, all right? We'll do the whole thing. Because one of the real lowlifes of this entire debacle, who still gets quoted a lot, is a dude named Chris Krebs. Krebs, Chris Krebs. And he was working at CISA. Now, why the hell we have a CISA, nobody really seems to know. It is a federal agency that kind of took it upon itself to make election security their mission in 2016, 2020, and the rest. 2020 especially. You guys, I don't like the idea that there are federal workers doing anything with elections. They shouldn't be they should be nowhere near election stuff, but they were all over it. And this guy boasts about hundreds of thousands of federal workers working to keep the 2020 election safe. Right there, it's a conflict. You can't have hundreds of thousands of these guys messing around with an election that President Trump is. Federal workers hate President Trump, drained the swamp, called out 9/11, called out weapons of mass destruction. So these guys, this paperwork really reveals them to be corrupt. Nobody is bothering to read it, including look, I understand the fake news is going to give them all a pass, is going to pretend that this is old news or it's nothing. Just ignore it, not even run the speech. I kind of expect that from them by now. But I do expect, and you should expect, and we should expect a little bit more from Fox News. Just a little bit more from Fox News. After all, they pretend to be great friends with President Trump. They gave him that great big Patriot Award. But, they're only with Trump when it's good for business. This thing, they thought, you know what, we can get away with this. No one's really making a big deal out of these documents. If we don't do the documents, no one's really going to notice. This is where their antipathy for President Trump really comes through. I was watching Fox News Sunday yesterday with Shannon Bream. One of our listeners said, because I wasn't that crazy about Dana Perino, something that Dana Perino said, and the person said, "But you know what? Dana Perino comes off like Judge Jeanine Pirro compared to Shannon Bream, who is as fake news as they come. Not one word about this stuff. Not one word. There were 3 seconds. 3 seconds of words. The president said something the other night about this, but Senator Shaheen, what do you think of the SAVE Act? Just nothing of substance, nothing. There should have been the whole show on this, the whole show, tearing apart these documents. And I have them right here, and they are rich. They are so rich. You have FBI agents aghast that this stuff is not going to make it into the presidential daily brief. The things about President Biden being preferred over President Trump by China. and they can't believe that it's being massaged out of the presidential daily brief by other FBI agents. They have this whole intelligence dossier that they put out. They're going to put it out, and then it's recalled. You ever see one of those emails that are recalled? It's like that. They recalled it. They recalled it because it made people at headquarters nervous. They thought it might help President Trump. So a lot of dirty things happened. It's not particularly sexy to talk about. You gotta go deep with these things, and look, it's a lot more fun, and it's a lot easier to make fun of Transgender Day of Awareness, right? And that's fun, but it's low-hanging fruit. This stuff is more important. All right, do me a favor. We have this, right? Okay, this is the Face the Nation show with one of the most duplicitous, nastiest lowlifes I've ever seen in my life, Chris Krebs. I wonder how much he makes in speaking fees. You know he's under investigation, or President Trump, with total justification, asked that to be investigated. I don't know if that's happening because DOJ drags its feet or just resists or just says no to everything. All right, hit it for me, Carlos. Face the Nation, also known as, what did Rush call it? Deface the Nation.
And for more on election security, we're joined now by CBS News contributors David Becker and Chris Krebs. Good to have you both here because I want to download from both of you what we should be understanding about this past week. Chris, the president of the United States, Donald Trump, appointed you to run the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, that's CISA, that Senator Warner was just talking about, to help states protect their election infrastructure during 2020. That was a secure election, you said. The president fired you for saying that. This past Thursday, he again insisted it was not secure. Did you hear anything that changes your assessment?
Not at all. In fact, I would say that it further bolsters my confidence in the security of the 2020 election between what has been released, disclosed last week, and all the information and the results of court challenges and other things in the intervening 6 years. 6 years. But it's also, I think, a good opportunity to reflect on the good work that the millions of hundreds of thousands, if not million or more, election workers that helped execute the 2020 election, the tens of thousands of federal government employees that worked to protect the 2020 election. That was not something that came together a couple weeks before 2020. That was years in the making. And that work was solid.
Secretary Mullins said Friday.
Stop for a second. That work was solid. Just ask the guy who was doing the work. That work was solid. That work was suspicious as hell. Tens of thousands of federal employees getting involved. Just a couple of days later, he says it's the safest election in the history of the country. That's an impossible thing. President Trump was totally justified in firing that guy's ass. And it gets worse. It gets far worse. This dude, I'm telling you, man, it's right there in plain sight. Now, it may not seem that way because the fake news is ignoring it. Conservative media too lazy to pursue it. But it's a gold mine. And President Trump was right and is right. A catastrophic failure. And the power that these people have to do it again is basically still there. Still there. They're a bit more nervous now because President Trump came back. You know, they realize, and these documents are floating out there. I noticed some things about this guy. He wasn't there were signs of nervousness, you know. You think, if I can get away with saying this in public and nobody calls me out on it, I must be doing okay. Wrong. You're in trouble, fruitcake. We'll be right back.
Greg Kelly
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Still have in my hand here the FBI report from one of the Jeffrey Epstein heroes, right? They call these women the Jeffrey Epstein survivors. I am now saying, basically, for me, Greg Kelly, officially, that the Jeffrey Epstein matter is a great big gosh damn hoax. All right? I am sick of it. I am over it. It is done. It is nothing but yet another way to try to dirty up Trump. All right? There is nothing here, people. There is nothing here. And what is here is so weird. The only thing I want to know is, are any of these women going to be prosecuted, possibly? Right? So I've been through this a bunch. I've showed people, and their jaw is dropping when I point out that the most prominent of these alleged survivors, right, were adult women when they met Jeffrey Epstein. Adult women when they met Jeffrey Epstein. 21, 22, 25, 26, 20, 19. Now, the one I did find was 17. And she showed up at Jeffrey Epstein's mansion, and she tells CNN, like, why did you go that day? To be a masseuse, she said. Oh, really? Yeah, $300. Easy money. Easy money. Now, 17. Are you a child at 17? You can drive a car when you're 17. You can drive a car when you're 16 in a lot of places. With your parents' consent, you can join the military at 17. You can enter the Naval Academy, Air Force Academy, West Point. You can do those things. Let's see, what else can you do at 17? You can have sex in New York State without the consent of your adult guardian. It's the age of consent. At least it was in 2004 when this woman allegedly met with Jeffrey Epstein. How about that? 17 years old. So this is Farmer. I have the FBI report from a woman named Farmer. Let's see here. Farmer. She goes to the FBI and she has a complaint. Okay, and here's the complaint. The complainant, this is the FBI form right here. It's called an FD-71, and it goes back to 1999 or 96. Can't really tell if that's a 9 or a 6. Very faded. Complainant stated that she is a professional artist and took pictures of her sisters, 12 and 16 years, for her own personal artwork. Epstein stated Epstein stole the photos and negatives and is believed to have sold the pictures to potential buyers. Epstein at one time requested blank to take pictures of young girls at swimming pools. Epstein is now threatening that if she tells anyone about the photos, he will burn her house down. So the complainant Farmer took nude pictures of her 12-year-old and 16-year-old sister. Maybe she's the child pornographer. None of this crap makes sense, all right? Scam.
Greg Kelly, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
All right, 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222. Are you old enough to remember where you were on this day in 1969 when Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin were walking around on that moon and poor Mike Collins was flying around all by himself overhead the moon? You know, he had a big consolation prize, Mike Collins. Number one, he's one of, 30 people to ever go in the vicinity of the moon. How many people have walked around on this earth? Something like 200 billion in the life of the earth. Every single person has looked at the moon and wondered what the hell it would be like to go up there. Well, Mike Collins is one of them. He's dead. So is Neil Armstrong. Buzz Aldrin is alive. He is 96 years old, everybody. I hope he's doing okay. But I just find it so awesome that we were there, and it happened 57 years ago today, July 20th, 1969. If you haven't seen there's a great movie. There are two great movies about this. You know, Buzz Aldrin became a buddy of mine, actually. And I had lunch with him a number of times. We had a mutual friend. I had dinner with him a couple of times. Really got to know him a little bit. And also, and I don't think, Buzz is so smart. He is just so smart. Socially, he's a little bit awkward, like a lot of these super-duper smart guys. And NASA back then did not take care of him and the other astronauts. He's a little shy. And in his own book, he talked about he had to give a speech before a joint session of Congress. And they're on Amtrak coming from a ticker tape parade in New York City. And he's on Amtrak. And they said, okay, just write the speech. He had to write his own speech. And he had a nervous breakdown, essentially. And then he goes to the Postmaster General. There's a ceremony there. And they've got a great big stamp. And it has a picture of one astronaut on the moon. And it says, man walks on the moon. And what about the men? And you know who was there? He's a good guy, but Buzz Aldrin's father was like amping him up. Can you believe they did this to you? This is a slight. And it would fire Buzz up, and it would just. It got worse. It's amazing. You can go all the way there and still be kind of disgruntled. And I don't blame him for being a little bit disgruntled. The guy gets back, and everybody is like, where's Neil? He's the first man to walk on the moon. What about me? He became a big drinker. And this is the part, though, I wish I knew him back then. I wish I could have talked to him. Buzz Aldrin comes back from the moon. Everything should be great, but it's not. And what happens is they make him the head of the test pilot school. Right? Hey, that's a great little assignment for him. He's still in the Air Force. Let's send you to test pilot school. Well, there was one problem. Not a real problem, but Buzz thought it was a problem. He had never attended test pilot school. So they made him the commanding officer of test pilot school when he hadn't actually gone there as a student. And guess who held it against him? The students, the other instructors, the previous commander of the school, the Air Force. Like, well, Buzz is here. You know what they wanted to do? They wanted to cut him down to size. They wanted to bring him back down to earth so that there was a little kind of low-grade harassment campaign. Not full-on harassment, but little snubs here and there because he had not gone to test pilot school. The man flew the most interesting, untested vehicle ever. How many tests did they do with the lunar module? You couldn't fly it on Earth. You could only fly it the first time you flew it in space. That poor guy. That can be a brutal place, the military. Brutal. Oh, here's something else he told me. In the Air Force, you're kind of on your own in that on base, your job is to fly the plane. And you go home and you come back and you fly the plane. When you're on a ship, say on an aircraft carrier, you're all jammed in there together. You have to work very closely with each other. You don't have to do that. You don't have to collaborate as much in the Air Force as you do in the Navy. And he said, and also the network, there are a lot of Navy astronauts, not as many Air Force astronauts. And that's one of the things. They had a great network, a support system, because they were so accustomed to being together, working together, living together. Not so much in the Air Force. So, Carlos, do me a favor. This is these are some highlights from what happened when we landed on that moon. I got these documents here. I'm going to go through them in a little bit. It's kind of heartbreaking. Poor President Trump. They wouldn't tell him the truth. They kept it from him. If President Trump gets a hold of this, he's going to have a dynamite issue on his hands. You guys have been saying I'm getting help from Russia. Well, what about all the help that the Chinese are giving Joe? They're bending over backwards to help Joe because they don't like me. And they didn't. They wanted Joe, in part because they own Joe. All right, let's go back. You are there. We're in the spaceship Eagle over the moon. It's about to separate from Columbia. And these boys are going to go where no man has gone before. Hit it, Carlos.
Eagle, Houston, we see you on the steerable, over. Roger, Eagle, contact. Roger, how does it look? The Eagle has wings. Roger.
Eagle has wings. All right, now what? That means the Eagle was flying on its own. Hey, they go to the moon next. Come on, what happens now? A little bit further in. There we go. This is ground control.
Okay, all flight controllers, go for landing. Retro, go. Fido, go. Guidance, go. Control, go. Telcom, go. GNC, go. Ecom, go. Surgeon, go. Capcom, we're go for landing.
Altitude 4200. Houston, you're go for landing, over. Roger, understand. Go for landing. 3,000 feet.
What if one guy said we're not ready?
How you doing, Control?
We look good here, fine.
How about you, Telcom? Go. Guidance, you happy? Go. Fido.
Go. 2,000 feet. 2,000 feet. Into the ag. 47 degrees. Roger. 37 degrees.
Still looking very good.
Your go. Top alarm. 1201. 1201. Roger, 1201 alarm.
1201 alarm. Same type, we're go, flight. Okay, we're go.
We're go, same type, we're go.
Altitude 1600.
Eagle looking great. Roger, 1202, we copy it. 35 degrees, 750, coming down to 23. 540 feet and at 15. 10 and 50 feet down at 4. Altitude, velocity, light. 3.5 down, 220 feet. 11 forward, coming down nicely, 200 feet. 4.5 down, 5.5 down. 100 feet,
Keep it coming.
3.5 down, 9 forward. Okay, 75 feet. That's looking good, down a half. 6 forward. 60 seconds.
60
Lights
seconds
on.
of gas.
Forward. Forward. 40 feet down, 2.5. Picking up some dust. Straight shadow. 4 forward, drift into the right a little. 30 seconds. Forward, drift. Contact light. Okay, engine stop. We copy you down, Eagle. Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Isn't that beautiful? But they don't have my favorite part. Roger, Tranquility, we copy you down. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. That was Charlie Duke manning the control helm there. And Houston, how about that? You ever take a look at that lunar module? You know, there are a couple of these things that still exist that weren't used because we ran out of money. There's one at the Cradle of Aviation Museum on Long Island. That was going to be Apollo 18. It's a pretty big thing, but it looks like it looks beautiful. I've heard other people say it's like a hunk of junk. This lunar module, it is. You know, the part that fascinates me. When did they actually fuel it? You know, how did they know it was actually going to work? I mean, they had to transport that thing. It was hanging around for a long time. I don't know, a billion little details. And there's another one at the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum, possibly the greatest museum in the world. You should go and take a look at that thing. It's free, by the way. All the best museums are free. All right, so what they did next, they're on the moon. You know what the first order of business was after they shut everything down? They were supposed to take a nap. They were supposed to go to sleep for a couple of hours, but they were too excited, so they moved up the moonwalk. You know, let's get you guys out there. So I think this next sequence is Neil Armstrong going down those steps, and he is the first man. I don't even like saying he's the first man, but he's the first man. Just not fair to Buzz. All right, let's go ahead and hit it. All right, they're going down to the moon.
Houston, this is Neil, radio check.
Neil, this is Houston, loud and clear. Break. Buzz, this is Houston, radio check and verified TV circuit breaker in.
Roger, TV circuit breakers in. At base 5 clear.
Roger. And we're getting a picture on the TV.
You had a good picture, huh?
There's a great deal of contrast in it, and currently it's upside down on our monitor, but we can make out a fair amount of detail.
They fix it.
Okay, would you verify the position, the opening I ought to have on the camera?
Stand what?
If this were fake, do you think they would have screwed this part up on purpose?
There's a foot coming down the steps.
It's Walter Cronkite.
Okay, Neil, we can see you coming down the ladder now.
Neil, we can see you coming. Okay, I just checked getting back up to that first step. That isn't collapsed too far, but it's adequate to get back up.
Roger, we copy.
It's a pretty good little jump.
So there's a foot on the moon, stepping down on the moon.
Not yet, Walter.
If he's testing
Shut
that
up.
first step, he must be stepping down on the moon at this point.
No, you're wrong. He's on the landing pad. Shut up, Walter.
10.
Buzz, this is Houston. F2, I'm at the 1/160th second for shadow photography on the sequence camera. Okay. I'm at the foot of the ladder. The LEM footpads are only depressed in the surface about 1 or 2 inches, although the surface appears to be very, very fine-grained as you get close to it. It's almost like a powder. Ground mass is very fine.
Boy, look at those pictures. Wow. It's a little shadowy, but he said he expected that in the shadow of the lunar module. Armstrong is on the moon. Neil Armstrong, 38-year-old American, standing on the surface of the moon on this July 20th, 1969.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Beautiful, Neil. Beautiful thing to say.
Neil's quote. I didn't understand it.
No, one small step for man, but I didn't get the second phrase.
Ah, shut up, Walter. Stop it. All right, that's good. Good. Can you believe if Walter spoke over him? He almost did. July 20th, 1969. Also known as 1969, you pompous ass. 1900. Thank God he didn't speak all over him. And declaring he was on the moon before he was on the moon. Anyway, not to take away from that amazing accomplishment. And then we went back, and then for a long time, nothing really happened. There was something fundamentally wrong with that. Anyway, we're back. Thank you very much to Jared Isaacman, to, let's see, who else? Elon Musk, to a lesser extent, Jeff Bezos, and, of course, President Trump. 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222. Be right back.
Greg Kelly, entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
All right, we are back, and let's, as those guys in Canada would say, go to the phones. Let's see, line 1. Oh, shoot, I just lost your name. It is, line 1 would be Sandy. Hello.
Hi, how you doing?
Good.
We've been talking a lot about China and their interference, possibly interference in our elections and all that.
What do you mean potential, possibly? Why do you put potential and possibly in there?
I'm being facetious. I listened to President Trump, and he's terrific. I wanted to bring attention to the fact that China and Qatar are very, very close to each other. And also, so is Tucker Carlson very close to Qatar.
Hey, guess who else is close to Qatar? The United States of America. The United States of America is close to Qatar. I know that makes people uneasy. It freaks people out. I know about certain pockets inside Qatar and their relationship with Hamas. I do not like it. The world is a complicated, corrupt, fallen place. But we have a massive airbase in Qatar. Central Command during the Iraq War, and a lot of the stuff that's going on right now, headquartered in Qatar. Are you aware of these things, Sandy?
I am, and I'm also aware of the fact that Qatar has a huge influence in our education system. They even own the controlling power of a pipeline in Texas, and they sell the gas that goes through that pipeline.
You know, though, here's the thing. The Middle East is a little bit different from how it was. You know, there was a time where everybody freaked us out, right? The Middle East, oh my gosh. You realize these places, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, Bahrain, these places are like friends of ours now. I know there's a lag factor here. People aren't catching up. Like we have a relationship, a genuine relationship. Did you see where President Trump went on his trip to the Middle East? Did you see the speech that he gave in Qatar? A lot has happened since, the dark days. A lot has happened. And look, I think it's better that we're friends than not friends. we can get our friends to do things that our enemies won't do. You know, Qatar has been hit by missiles from Iran. You know that, right?
I do. I also know that Qatar is very much on the side of those.
What's with you in Qatar? What is with you in Qatar? I mean, like, you realize that there's factionalism, right? We have people in this country who are very much against Israel, as you know, and people who hold office, people in Congress, people who want to be president, have feelings on par with what you're describing about Israel. So, you know, it's not all black and white. So I just, you know, in Saudi Arabia and these other people, let's see here, the Abraham Accords. You're familiar with the Abraham Accords. It is a new era over there. What'd you think about the plane that we got, President Trump got? You know where he got it from, right?
Hey,
you know where he got it from, right? What?
And he didn't use it.
What do you mean he didn't use it? He's flying it all over the place.
I thought he didn't use it for security purposes.
He flew it there. He flew it to Wisconsin. He's flying it all over the place. Look, there are a couple of things that they want to do, not because it came from Qatar, all right? Not because it came from Qatar, but because they haven't installed all the defensive systems on it, which, oh, by the way, is a lot of crap. All right? It's a great big sitting duck, whether it's got those defensive systems on it or not. I know how those defensive systems work. Good luck with it. So, I mean, all right, I am aware of everything that you are saying, and I'm not spooked by it. I'm not. And I also don't know enough about Qatar to know, you know, the money that's going. Hell, there's money that's coming from America that's gone to Hamas. You know that, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are American citizens who have sent money to Qatar. Is this happening? Is the king of Qatar or the emir personally sending this money? Does he want this money? I think it's a little bit, I don't know. I love Israel. There must be no support of terrorism. But people I trust, and my own experience tells me that Qatar, you know, when we say Qatar, what do we mean? What do we mean? When you say America, what do we mean? Are we talking about Trump? Are we talking about AOC? You know, AOC and Trump disagree on almost everything, don't they? But somebody in Qatar would be like, America just said this. I saw it on television. So I'll give you this. I would like to know a little bit more about what the hell's going on. But Sandy, I appreciate it. Everything else good with you?
Everything's great, and I love talking to you.
All right. Keep it up. Stay in touch. Thank you. There's the music. We shall return momentarily. July 20th. You know what I think? Believe it or not, I'm pretty sure I'm going to go to the moon before I die. I had a vision.
Thanks for listening to The Greg Kelly Show. You can hear The Greg Kelly Show weekdays at 12:15 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?